Hey kids, this is Chef Jack with another edition of Marvel vs. DC. You all know the rules by now. Englentine and I have divided up every single comic book released by both DC and Marvel, and each week we review those new releases. We give each book a score of 1 to 5 stars, and at the end we average out the points, and the publisher with the best average score is the winner for that week. With all that said, let's get this party started. The 1-star books. These are the worst. Not merely bad, but awful and horrendous. Avoid them at all costs. Deadpool Kills the Marvel Universe Again, number 3. Okay, my review in a nutshell. Big pile of crap. I'd rather read Squirrel Girl. How about that? How's that for a review? Seriously, that's how bad it is. Edge of the Venomverse number 4. Unless you're a huge geek for Old Man Logan, go ahead and give this one a pass. Other than the first one, all of the Edge of the Venomverse issues have been big disappointments, but at least there have been the occasional moment of fun to be had, here and there. And the basic idea of other guys becoming Venom, sure, I can dig that. But this issue is lacking even that. It's boring and unoriginal. It sort of plays like a sequel to Old Man Logan, with him being in the wasteland again, because, we haven't seen that enough yet. Maybe if the art was better, the bad story could be forgiven just a little bit, and this would have ended up a 2-star book. But in the end, though, this reads like something you'd find on, fanfiction.net, or maybe Archive of Our Own, than in an actual legitimate comic book. The 2-star books. These comics might be bad, but there's usually 1 or 2 things that save them from being truly horrible. Titans number 14. As a comic book series, Titans has been in a really weird place lately. By which I mean that the further they get away from the Lazarus Contract storyline, the more the title seems to be overwhelmed by the soap opera style romance drama that's going on instead of any of the actual plots. And rather focus on the story or any of the subplots. Wally's heart problems or Donna's mysterious history or Bumblebee's missing memories. All we get is interpersonal drama. Sure, there's a place in comics for romance, but when it's handled like it's being handled here, it's boring and it's horrible and messy. Nothing is being added to any of the romances to make them feel, vibrant, just more of the same. And, having to read all of them simultaneously makes you wonder whether you're reading a superhero comic book or maybe watching some CW-esque drama about high school girls on television. It's just coming apart at the seams. Hulk number 9. This title's been bogged down in the same old since it started. The utter lack of momentum or any forward progress has become glaring. This particular issue continues the underwhelming Inhuman growth hormone storyline, and while at least we get to see Jennifer Walters hulking out for a little bit, the plot isn't advanced in any way at all when the issue's over. It just kind of sits there, spinning its wheels. And on top of it all, the art is horribly inconsistent. You can immediately tell when Julian Lopez stops and Francesco Gaston starts. And all told, it makes for a very sloppy, very boring book. I'd give it a pass. Rocket number 4. As this series has progressed, the issues have become worse and worse as time goes on. The first was a wonderful little noir story, and I had a lot of hope based on that issue, but I should have known better. This issue features a lot of stilted dialogue and a rather ridiculous plot, what little there was of it, and some bad guys who were just jokingly awful. Cringeworthy awful. I barely finished reading it because the pacing of this story was off, and in the end I was just glad I had finished it. It wasn't enjoyable at all. Venom 153. Got a riddle for you guys. What does the Land Before Crime storyline that finishes in this issue have in common with Fred Durst's career? Answer is, both are gone and ain't never coming back, and good riddance, and now we can move on to better things. The only decent thing about this issue is the art, which is consistent and high quality throughout. The story itself is boring and it's repetitive, and it absolutely isn't the Venom versus dinosaurs plot that we were promised. Plus, honestly, guys, if I've got to put up with Moon Girl for one more moment, I might open up one of my veins. That's not to say that there weren't a couple of bright spots. There were. And believe it or not, one of the bright spots actually involved Moon Girl, who I normally hate. But if we had to have this story, this should have been one of those single-issue one-offs and not a three-issue spread. The 3-star books. These comics are just average. They fall neither on the good end of the spectrum nor the bad. Justice League of America number 12. I am not going to beat around the bush here. I just can't recommend this issue. The problem is I also can't outright say don't buy it. I mean, this is a completely meh issue for me. I mean, sure, we're not mired down in endless philosophical discussions or half the action happening off panel like we've seen in previous issues of this title, but what we are seeing isn't all that much more exciting. I mean, technically it functions. It does everything a comic book is supposed to do, but that's all. That's all. It is so bland and tasteless that it's like eating cardboard. It's unsatisfying. Now, the art is pretty good at least, but I do have one huge complaint. The microverse looks like a generic alien planet. The inhabitants of the microverse look like generic aliens. If we weren't specifically told this is happening at a subatomic level, it might as well be happening in space. And personally, I think that was just the wrong decision to make. Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? Number 84. Normally, I actually enjoy this title. I mean, sure, it's aimed at the younger readers, but you know, there's fun stuff here for the adults to enjoy if they give it a try. But I didn't enjoy this issue all that much. For one thing, while technically there are 2 stories in this issue, the first is about the ghost of a knight in armor that's haunting a Camelot-themed restaurant, and the second is about a samurai ghost haunting a Japanese restaurant. In both cases, you know who the villain is nearly from the beginning. It's like the writer isn't even trying anymore. Luckily, there are a couple of fun little puzzles in the book, plus they do a thing about the comparison between movie zombies and quote-unquote real-world zombies that was possibly the most interesting to happen in this particular issue. But otherwise, if your kid likes reading it, get him this issue. If not, don't bother. There's better stuff to read. Superwoman 13. This issue's one big tribute to the Silver Age and the old Superboy comics. Lana's returned to Smallville and is under the influence of a guy calling himself Red Sun, who seems to be the sort of like Metallo, but he's powered by red kryptonite instead of green. Lex is there trying to stop the two of them from tearing up the town, and in between we get a lot of flashback details about everybody's history back in Smallville High. It's a fun issue. It calls back to, you know, the Smallville series and the Superboy comics of the 60s, but it does raise questions like, since when did DC decide to go back to multicolored kryptonite? And does this mean we're going to see a giant turtle version of Jimmy Olsen anytime soon? For as much as this issue is fun, the story is unfortunately really rushed, and it would have been much better stretched out over 2 or 3 issues instead of all crushed into one. And the fact that we have no lead into this story at all is off-putting. So while it's not a horrible issue, like I said, it's a fun issue. It's just not a very good one, and it's difficult to read and difficult to get into. So I can't really recommend it, nor can I say avoid it. It just sort of is. Immortal Iron Fists number 2. I'm sort of caught in the middle with this one. I absolutely love the storyline. It's fun. It's thrilling. It's got, you know, great adventure. Seeing Danny Rand in a father role while Pei figures out her place in the new world is just great, and it's entertaining. And there's always fun kung fu action, and who doesn't like that? On the other hand, the art, to be honest, is horrible. It's absolutely horrible. I mean, sure, the action is fluid and dynamic, despite the fact that it looks horrible and cartoony. But in any scene that the action isn't dynamic, it's muddled, it's badly colored, it's just awful. It's horrible. And, you know, when I say awful, I mean I've seen better art in ashcan amateur homemade comics at sci-fi conventions. And it's for this reason that I can't give this book more than 3 stars. I wish I could. I want to give it more. I like the book, but the art is just off-putting. The 4-star books. Now we're getting to the good stuff. These are the comics we can actually recommend. Hal Jordan and the Green Lantern Corps, number 26. The first issue of any new story arc is always going to be difficult to judge because, you know, there's no way to tell where the story is going to go or what's going to happen. But for the most part, this one makes me want to find out, you know, what the hell's going on. I want to know more. You know, who is this new enemy? How are the new gods tied to it? You know, they're questions that I'm going to have to go on to the next issues to find out. The writing in this series just continues to get better and better with every issue. The artwork remains some of the best in all of comics right now, which is something that can be said for both Green Lantern series. There weren't any real negatives that, you know, I wouldn't say are just personal quibbles. So while for me those negatives might take this book to a 4-star instead of a 5, they don't ruin the story completely, and I can recommend it. This is one to be enjoyed. New Superman number 14. I'm really coming to enjoy this series more and more as time goes on. I admit at first I was a bit skeptical because, like, you know, Chinese Superman, come on. But since then I'm becoming a fan. This issue's action-packed without once really losing the narrative of the plot and, you know, descending into being nothing more than fight scenes. And I gotta say, seeing the Great Ten in action was fun. And I'm beginning to wonder why DC hasn't ever tried to make a book starring that group. It would be cool to see what they could do with, you know, an entire group of Chinese superheroes. The interpersonal relationship between Chinese Batman and Chinese Wonder Woman is getting pretty cool. And the internal conflict between I Ching and I Ching is just amazing to watch play out. The one problem I have was the appearance of the Suicide Squad, which was both unnecessary and felt like a complete Deus Ex Machina. Otherwise, this issue is a must-read. Supergirl number 12. I won't lie, this was a fun issue. There were a few points where the dialogue was a bit cringy, sure, but otherwise it was a great ride, and it leaves some serious questions as to what was going to happen next. It is definitely the first time in a long time that I thought the story was doing justice to the character of Supergirl. You can see in this issue just how much influence the TV show is having also, especially in Cat Grant's portrayal. And lastly, the art was just perfect. I have a great deal of respect for Brian Ching, do not get me wrong, but Roca, Enriquez, and Atea just took it to a new level. This was just perfect. The only real negative I found was how the villains were all stolen from other heroes. I mean, they were all stolen from... I mean, yeah, okay, you can justify it, I guess, with Superman villains, but Batman villains? Supergirl is in serious need of her own rogues gallery. Dr. Aphra number 11. For several issues now, it's become clearer and clearer and clearer that Dr. Aphra is juggling, and she keeps adding balls because she doesn't know what else to do. And she knows eventually she's going to start dropping them, and when she drops them, she's going to find out she's not actually juggling balls, she's juggling hand grenades. Well, this is the issue that she starts finally dropping the hand grenades, and the consequences are very satisfying for the readers. Gilling is doing a great job of allowing the personal motivations of every single character in this story flow in a logical way, while converging many of the long simmering side plots together just to form a great story. And Kev Walker's art keeps up with the pace and never gets lost in the shuffle or becomes overly busy. And the choreography from one panel to the next is just superb. And I'm waiting for the next issue because this one ended on a cliffhanger. The 5-star books. These books are the best of the best, at least for this week. These are the ones that we recommend the most. Mr. Miracle number 1. I recently did a full-length 20-minute video talking about how absolutely amazing this issue is and how it was the best comic book of 2017 so far. So I'm not going to go into any detail with it here. If you want to know what I really think about it, go find that video and watch it, because all I'm going to say here is this is a perfect comic book, and I stand by that statement. This book was amazing. I'm giving it 5 stars because we don't give out 6. If you haven't read this issue, you owe it to yourself. Find it, buy it, read it. Trust me, you'll love it. Suicide Squad number 23. This issue starts with a bang. Amanda Waller reneges on her deal with Batman and wants Killer Frost back, which means that a conflict with Batman is inevitable because he protects his people and Killer Frost is now a member of the Justice League. This issue feels like one of those old school impossible mission stories that they did in the early days back in the 80s and 90s. There is no mole in the group they have to uncover. There's no inside drama that has the team at each other's throats. This is just the difficult mission that might actually get some of them hurt, if not killed. Like I said, it felt like one of the issues from back in the 80s. Everything you want in a Suicide Squad story is here, and it's amazing. And the setup for the very next issue is just perfect, and I can't wait to get to it. I want more, and I want it now. Ms. Marvel 21. Guys, this one surprised me. This story is just getting better and better. I love what Wilson did in this issue. I mean, I was already pretty much on board for the story, but now she's upped the game by revealing that her villain, Discord, isn't just some racist douchebag, but is actually a living, breathing human being who has an understandable motive. I mean, this is the white man whose life has always sucked beyond the ability to describe it. He can never catch a break. He never gets it good. But he's always told that he's got it lucky because he's got white man's privilege. Well, if he's so goddamn privileged, how come everybody else around him has better than he does? So when Ms. Marvel, the champion of minorities, shows up to save the day, what does it mean for straight white guys like him to be excluded from the saving? The fact that Willow Wilson is showing us all sides of this conflict and doing so fairly without prejudice just makes me want to see the next issue that much more. This is just a great issue, and it's handling a sensitive topic amazingly well. And now to round up the scores. Marvel this week had 2 1-star books, 3 2-star books, 1 3-star book, 1 4-star book, and 1 5-star book, for a grand total of 20 points. I reviewed 8 titles, which means their average score is 2.5. DC Comics, on the other hand, had no 1-star books, 1 2-star book, 3 3-star books, 3 4-star books, and 2 5-star books, for a grand total of 32 points. I reviewed 9 titles by DC this week, which means their average score is 3.56. Once again, DC Comics is the winner. But folks, what did you think about these comics? Was I right? Was I wrong? Was I, just completely full of it? Tell me why you think so in the comments below. If you like this video and you want to see more of them, click like and subscribe and the little notification bell in the corner so you don't miss any of our future videos. And if you feel like helping out, we've got a Patreon page and a VidMe page set up, and there are links below. Feel free to wander over and drop $1 in the till. But even if you don't do that, thanks for taking the time out to watch. We do appreciate it, and we hope to catch you next time. Thank you very, very much for watching.